Alright, got a build overview for my Bane Occultist featuring the Melding of the Flesh Jewel, which is the character I've been playing the last few days on Hardcore Trade Arch Nemesis League. Really been enjoying it, so I'll show you guys how the build's been going, how it functions, all that good stuff. To get started, this is not a budget starter type build. I'm sure there's plenty of Bane Occultist builds out there that are. This one I made with a few things in mind that you need ahead of time if you want to run this version of it. The main one being Melding of the Flesh, which is a new unique jewel. It turns your highest elemental resist cap into all your elemental resist caps. So by just scaling, in my case, maximum fire resistance, you can see I currently have all three of my elemental resistances at 85% cap. And I can get that up to about 88% without too much else other than just better versions of what I have already, which gives you a ton of elemental mitigation. And then the other main thing really is that to enable that, because I need to run some purities and some extra ores and stuff, I'm using the Ashes of the Stars amulet, which is also a new unique from the new bosses. It gives mana reservation efficiency, but then it also has the nice bonus of giving +1 spell gems, or all skill gems even, and bonus quality to skill gems, which for most builds, you know, it's solid. It's kind of especially good for Bane, because in normal builds it doesn't apply to your support gems. But since, in my case, 3 of my support gems are actually curses, they do get the benefits from this amulet. So before I get into all the other specifics, I'm going to toss in this map, show how the build plays. I made the build for mapping. That was my goal with it. Not a bosser. It probably could do bosses, it would just be slow because the single target DPS isn't very high. But I made it to map, those maps. And this is with Searing Exarch influence on because that's what I have my Atlas passives for at the moment. And it's pretty much just zooming around, pop Bane on each attack, and stuff dies. Stuff explodes, stuff dies. Don't really have to worry about any incoming damage for the most part with how tanky it is at this point, other than like heavy amounts of purely physical damage. Elemental damage, like I said, does almost no threat, other than maybe some nasty dots. Chaos is not much of a concern. I'm at, I think, just shy of 75 chaos res at the moment, thanks to getting a free 60% chaos res as a cultist. And then we've got a whole bunch of evasion with a really juiced up grace and 100% spell suppression as well on top of that. You can see right there, the map boss doesn't die super fast. It's fine, it's fast enough, I'm not bothered by it. And it can still get faster as I get better gear. Or if I like really wanted to maximize the damage, I could swap some things around and get some more. But it's good, it's fine enough. Maps are pretty smooth, pretty clean. I like it. So let me jump into now the gear. The main, I guess only unique actually that I'm wearing as far as the gear goes is the amulet that I was just showing for the reservation efficiency, and then just the +1 gem level and the plus quality are both really nice. I have Hexmaster anointed, which is I guess it shows it there now on the amulet itself, but it's 50% increased area of effect for hex skills, which Bane still has the hex tag, it just doesn't have the curse tag. So it does get those benefits. It gets 50% AoE and 100% skill effect duration. The duration doesn't matter that much, honestly. It's nice, but this is mostly for that 50% increased AoE, so we can hit more mobs, clear more. And then all of my item slots that you can use the new influenced implicits on, I am taking advantage of. Starting with the helmet. The helmet was pretty key to get it started. because I have a mana reservation implicit as well as a mana reservation just suffix on the item. The suffix is from essences. I believe Essence of Loathing. Yes. No? Yes? Yes. Yes. Essence of Loathing. Um, I got pretty lucky crafting this one. Managed to hit a big life roll and a big spell suppression roll. But the main thing is to get the 2 mana reservation rolls to enable all the auras. Because as you can see, there's not a lot of mana open here. Eventually, if I got like a level 4 Enlighten, or if I got like a reduced reservation helmet enchant, I think I could drop the mana reservation implicit and replace it with more physical taken as like fire or cold or lightning damage. Because those mods are kind of like the one big source of physical mitigation available to us. But helmet is important, big source of your mana reservation. Body armor is kind of just fills up stats that you need. Spell suppression, definitely the one piece you 100% want spell suppression on. Life, I got some res. Life gained is ES. I ended up making this one just by spamming Essences of Greed until I hit like a good spell suppression roll, and got a pretty solid one that way. The rings, this one I have one ring with mana regen and one ring with minus mana cost. Otherwise they're kind of just filling in my resistance needs, and this one has some strength on it. Originally I had strength on a belt, and decided to try to get strength on the ring instead so I could switch to a Stygian belt. Pretty happy with where the rings are. This one's really good. But yeah, mana regen and minus cost. I think you want at least one roll of each of those. The gloves is another piece where it's pretty good to try to go for some spell suppression. Again, you can use like Essences of Greed to roll for it. And additionally a +1 AoE craft on the prefix for putting the blight, the Vol Blight in the gloves to get it a little bit more damage. Mine don't need the dexterity, that just is kind of there, but it's not actually needed. The rest of the stats are good though. And then Chaos Multi implicit, Slower Wither implicit are both nice. The belt is another kind of like the rings, it's just filling in stat gaps. Strength, some res, and in my case I got a Hunter Exalt and was able to get chaos damage on it. In a really good spot now. My jewel in here has life and mana, which I actually wanted specifically life and mana because I was feeling like my unreserved mana was kind of low, to where like I think I just barely have enough, or I don't even technically have enough to cast a Bane and like a Flame Dash back to back without a tiny bit of regen kicking in. But it would probably be fine without it, but a little bit of flat mana in a few spots I think is really helpful. Boots are just life and movement speed and resist, but then the implicits is where this is important because it's the off slot that can get maximum fire resistance. This one currently has +1, which is the lowest tier. If you get it up to like, you have to go up a bunch of ranks. I don't know exactly where it is, but eventually it hits +2 max fire res. So a better version of that mod gets another max fire, which turns into max everything. So that's an upgrade that I need on this one, but otherwise, yeah, life res, movement speed, boots. Shield is the big source of max fire res. You get +3 maximum fire resist, and I would say currently my shield's probably my weakest item. I just have one to get that +3 max fire. I'll try to get a better one eventually. Ideally, it would be like a spirit shield with a bunch of spell damage, or maybe +1 chaos, but to get those alongside +3 fire max is really, really hard. And then weapon, just a regular chaos damage over time weapon. Mine has some weird extra stats that I don't need, but the main thing is spell damage and +1. +1 all spells specifically. Because you need that all spell level and not just plus chaos, so that you can get an extra level on your Purity of Fire and your other auras, but mostly the Purity of Fire. But +1 all spells, some spell damage prefix, and dot multi is like the main things. This one had cast speed extra, which I really like. It makes mapping that much smoother and faster. Although something like a +2 wand would probably be preferable if you're able to get your hands on one. That's all the rares. They're mostly, I would say, pretty straightforward. Just making a lot of use out of the new implicits available from the new influences. Really quickly, I'll jump through the gems. I have a cast and damage taken steel skin, just for, you know, cast and damage taken. Level, what is this? Level 1 clarity, just for a little bit of mana regen. It's definitely worth it, I think. Grace, Malevolence, Purity of Elements in the helmet, all linked to Enlighten. Purity of Elements is helping counter a bunch of that minus resist on the jewel, and also gives us our elemental ailment immunity. We got Flame Dash, Withering Step, Arcane Surge, movement skills. Withering Step gives a little bit of a speed boost and does the Wither debuff, obviously. And then in the chest is the Bane, and like I said, I have 3 curses on it right now. I have Temp Chains, Despair, and Enfeeble. And then I have Awakened Void Manipulation, Awakened Swift Affliction. Awakened Void Manipulation is definitely the one Awakened gem you really want to go for here, because if you get it to level 5, it does +1 to Chaos spells. Awakened Swift Affliction I just got more recently. Before that I just had Controlled Destruction. It's not that big of a difference, but trying to min-max this character a bit. And then I have my Vol Blight and my gloves with Controlled Destruction, Efficacy, and Infused Channeling. Probably ideally I eventually get an Awakened Void Manipulation for this as well. I'm not exactly sure which gem I would drop. Might be the Efficacy. I'd have to check into that a little bit, but that's something to keep in mind. And then in the boots I have my Shield Charge with faster attacks, and then also my Defiance Banner and my Purity of Fire, which currently, unfortunately, is level 20 and not level 21, because I haven't been able to vol a level 21 yet. When I vol level 21, with the +1 skill from the amulet and the +1 spell from the wand, it will become level 23 overall, which makes it go from 4% base max fire res to 5%. And with the aura effect that I have, that will actually net me a total of +2 max fire res. So if you combine that with the fact that I can get a higher tier of the fire res roll on the boots, that's how I can gain another +3 max res to get it up to 88. Yeah, that's all that stuff. Really quickly jump through the flasks. I mean, I got a Quicksilver, a Jade, a Quartz. Taste of Hate is good. Has Fizz taken as cold, so it's another way of physical mitigation. And then the Life Flask. Nothing really too special in these. I mean, you probably want one of these 3 utility flasks to have an increased evasion roll. I like this chance to avoid being stunned. I like this reduced effective curses, and for prefixes, the gain charges when you get hit is just in general really solid. But yeah, flasks, pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Alright, and finally on to the passive tree. Starting off at, we'll start with the Ascendancy stuff. I mean, it's got Profane Bloom, it's got Malediction, it's got the Chaos stuff. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory for why we need them, what they do. Profane Bloom, things go boom. Void Beacon and Withering Presence give you a lot of damage, and the Chaos resist on this is actually really nice. And then Malediction is just a +1 curse and a little bit more damage and mitigation, effectively. But going up through the Witch spell damage and then straight across and out to the right, you could go these 3 points instead of the spell damage ones, but I don't know that it's really worth it. I like the extra damage, and you're only saving a couple points. Grabbing life along the way. The tree right over here, it all looks very... I don't like the way it looks, to be honest, but I think that's just kind of the shadows layout looking weird. But anyway, we go over here, get some damage over time, get this node that I don't ever know how to pronounce the word, and people say it's wrong every time I say Leth Shade. But it's just for some reduced damage over time, since we're immune to like Ignite and stuff. Area of effect over here for more clear, more damage, I grabbed Arcane Sanctuary recently, which gives the damage on this isn't that great, these 3 nodes, but does give some stun avoidance. And that with the Flask, I was comfortable dropping the Brine King stun protection in favor of Solaris Pantheon, which is much more mitigation focused. And then for my minor Pantheon, I just run the physical and bleed one pretty much all the time. But the one main important thing that you'll see while we go over this way and all this and some other spots is an aura effect wheel, and then charisma, another aura effect wheel, and what's this one called? Leadership. 3 aura effect wheels to scale the auras, because we're running a lot of them, and we need a lot of reservation and all that stuff. I also have +1 curse, so that I can run my 3rd curse. Ghost Shrouds over here, Ghost Shrouds OP, down through Shadow. Everything else kind of boring. I did get overcharged for charge generation while mapping, since I am just mostly caring about mapping with this character. And I have this Scion socket with an Unnatural Instinct, which is just kind of a really nice smorgasbord of a bunch of stats. It's a good one. And then my other jewel socket's a Watcher's Eye, which currently just has physical taken as cold while affected by Purity of Elements, which is good. I'd eventually like to try to get one with like 2 useful stats. I probably want at least some form of physical taken as elemental with either Purity of Elements or Purity of Fire. And then like really anything else for either of the Purities or the Malevolence or the Grace. But just something. It is a good source of more physical mitigation. And then, I mean, that about covers the whole setup that I'm doing. If you want a few alternatives for things, like especially for softcore, this character is extremely tanky. Like I said, like physical damage is the only thing that's scary, and it's not even really scary. It's just the only thing that I'm even keeping in mind. Anything that's doing non-physical just doesn't even really matter. It's very tanky. But that being said, if you wanted to squeeze a little bit more damage out, probably the first thing I would say is that you can just drop this extra curse here. The temp chains isn't really needed, to be honest. You could just put another damage support and you'll gain more, because I think this temp chains is effectively like, in terms of a support gem, like 20, low 20s% more damage. It does make your lights last longer, but I think you can maintain 20 stacks anyway. You can put a damage support there. Alternatively, in place of either temp chains or just a damage support, you can do a Awakened Spell Cascade for even more AoE for clear, which is something I want to try at some point. I just can't afford the gem yet because I've been buying a bunch of gear upgrades nonstop. That could be really, really solid for like even more AoE clear power. I mean, you could dual wield for damage as well. You're gonna lose 3 max res, but I mean, I've been fine just crushing T16s at 85 fire res, and like I said, if I get a 21 purity and +2 on my boost, I'd be at 88. But then even if I took off the shield, I'd still be at 85 again. I mean, you could dual wield and it would probably be fine, especially if you got those other sources of max res that I'm missing. And additionally, one thing I might go for at some point, I don't know how realistic it'll be, but Essence of Delirium gloves for blight damage, for specifically like map bosses, since those are the only things that don't die right away, can be really good. The only thing for me is I'm committed to getting a lot of spell suppression on my gloves, so it would probably be kind of tough to make a pair with spell suppression and the Delirium mod, but I might go for it at some point. It's a good way to get more damage. Actually, also, if you were really, really min-maxing, you can get the unveiled version of the plus AoE gems, and it becomes +2 the level instead of +1, but that's just a whole nother level. Yeah, I think that's everything. As far as leveling goes, like prior to being able to put the melding of the flesh jewel in and run all the auras and all that, I leveled as just chaos dot skills. I put Bane in as soon as I could and just leveled with Bane, and like just kind of picked up chaos nodes and life nodes and just really basic things. I don't have a tree or anything for it. I just kind of made it up as I went, and like it was fine. It's solid. It works. You can do that. It'll carry you up to like I think I had to get to like level 80 something to get enough points to get like all the aura nodes to enable running all my auras and getting everything going. So it is pretty end game focused, obviously, with like these expensive uniques and all that, or at least expensive on hardcore. Yeah, that's the build. I think it's a lot of fun. It's probably the most fun mapping I've had in a very, very long time, which is honestly at least partly due to the Alice changes that are really good. But the build itself is a blast, and it's super tanky, and I like it. And maybe you'll like it if you try it. Thanks for watching the video. Hope it was helpful. Hope you liked it. See you in the next one, whenever that may be. Later.